case for why we need more women in sales. That's a topic we're going to talk about today. I think it's an important topic, and I have no other than the one and only, the best guest for this topic, Miss Tiffani Bova. You're going to love this episode. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast here on TSC TV on YouTube. I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. I'm so excited to have the one and only Miss Tiffani Bova on this podcast. She's a Senior Vice President of Global, let me get this right, Growth Evangelist. Yes, you see, she's an evangelist as well at Salesforce. And Tiffani is going to be talking to us today on this topic because it's a very important topic. And Tiffani comes with a range of her sales experience, years of experience, and in which she has been empowering and helping individuals. And some of the things that Salesforce is doing right now is cutting edge when it comes towards making sure that we have more women taking part in sales and have diverse teams as well. Anyways, Tiffani is also an author, and you could check out her book. We have a link down in our show notes, as well as some information going back to her. Fascinating individual, and I highly recommend you connect with her. Anyways, let's go ahead and dive into the episode today. You're going to hear a little bit more Tiffani talk about a little bit more what she's doing, but also just her experience and why she believes we need to get more women involved in sales. Tiffani, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Super appreciate having you.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Well, Tiffani, the big piece I want to talk about today is like why we need women in sales. And I kind of prepped in the teaser there. I bragged about you for a little bit and built you up there on that. But let's talk about that. Like you're passionate for this, and for many of us, we need to talk about it. But why? Why do we need women in sales, in your view?
I guess my question back would be, why not?
Boom! Yes! Some of my best sales leaders, Tiffani, were women. The best. And I'm not saying that to be, I've talked about it on an episode. It's documented many times. It's so true. But let's go into
Yeah, well, first I'd say, why not, right? I've been in sales now for, well, I don't carry a quota anymore, but let's call it 25 years or so that I've been in and around sales. But when I was carrying a bag and selling, I was most definitely, because I was selling technology, I was probably one of the only women. There was very few of us, and the buyers on the other side of the table tended to be male as well. So I'd say a couple of things, and all joking aside, why not? But you have to also think about what is it that you are selling and who is the buyer. In so many categories, women are the primary decision maker and buyer. So why ignore 50% of the population by not having at least women represented? I'm not saying that men can't sell to women and women can't sell to men. That's not what I'm saying. It's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that you want the sales force, right? The team of people that are out there representing your technology or your products and services to represent who the buyers are. So especially if you're in a category that tends to be a product that is more female oriented, then why have men selling or men in product development, et cetera? Once again, just really representing who it is your customer is.
Some people say, and I've heard this argument, I had a discussion with someone last week up to this, and he was like, somebody stated the idea of diversity in the Salesforce or diverse Salesforce, and we were talking about that. But the concept here, he said, well, what does it mean to be diverse? Is there a number that when we've hit diverse, that we can say our company is now diverse? And I didn't want to, we don't have time to go into my argument with that. But in the same vein, let me play the devil's advocate on that side. What should that look like for a sales team? Is that me getting one woman on my sales force as a tech company and saying I'm a diverse company now, or is that like, I have women on my team, so I have 3 women on the team of 15 guys? Like, what would that be? What would your arguments or thoughts be on that?
Well, I think that lots of people get, and I know you're specifically talking about this, right? Male, female, and then potentially race, right? So you might say, well, how many African Americans, or how many from the Pacific Rim, or how many, underrepresented minorities, et cetera, right? but there's also diversity of thought. So you also want
Mm.
people who have different thinking styles, introverts and extroverts. And, inside selling people are very different from a personality standpoint, potentially, than outside field sellers. And now everybody's an inside seller at the moment, depending on where you're listening to this in the world, right? But once again, I'm just going to fall back on what I was just saying. So let's hypothetically say that your customer base and
Yeah.
the makeup of your customer. You could start there, male, female. You could talk, say, look, we tend to sell products into a minority group. And so do we have that representation? I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but I always worry that if it's just a checkbox and you don't understand the power behind why diversity is so powerful,
Yeah.
then I think you've missed the point. So it is really the dynamics of getting different points of view and different thinking styles, and different opinions. If everybody looks the same and thinks the same, I think that you've really done yourself a disservice.
You've worked with a lot of major companies, and have a lot of experience when it comes to the table. Um, when it's said and done, like how can we get more women involved in sales? Do you feel from your or see from your vantage point that some women stray from it or don't go towards sales because it's a male dominated thing, or are we seeing more and more women coming into sales? But what are some of your thoughts how we can increase that volume?
Well, I can say over the last 25 years of me watching it, for sure, we've seen more women in sales, but there were certain industries where women were the dominant seller. You could
Mm.
say pharmaceuticals back in the day when pharmaceutical reps were out selling to doctors, it was primarily women.
Yeah.
And then in some industries, it's predominantly men. If you think about car salespeople, right? If you go look on the lot, how many women are standing on the lot at a car dealership? Not very many. And so some of it is because the leaders or the managers make prospective new hires feel uncomfortable in that situation. So I think this is really up to managers to say, look, I want to give everybody an opportunity and give the right person who has the right fit for us the job,
Yeah.
regardless of whom they may be. And so this is also, if you're only getting white men that are, applying for the job, then you may say, okay, is it in something that I've written? Is it that they look at my current sales team and that's the representation? So I'm turning off people. And so if you're only getting one set, then are you saying, am I even, writing this appropriately, or giving people opportunity? And so for leaders, you have to push back on your hiring managers to say, look, I want some diversity in who we're providing opportunity for. And then I want a reason as to why we just keep hiring, white guys, 25 years old that came out of these three colleges, or, African American that comes out of this college, or, you know what I'm saying? It just ultimately, this is about diversity, period. Not just men and women and not just sort of race. It has to be broader than that.
Do you feel that the going back to young women now, because you mentioned college here, and I can tell you in my classes that I had in college, there weren't a lot of female in the business program that I was going to school at, where I was going to school and so forth. What are your thoughts on how we can make that change, even at that level, collegiate level?
Well, yeah, I'd start right away at just colleges. There's no MBA for sales.
Yeah.
There's an MBA for marketing. We finally do have sales programs in a number of schools across the country in the US. There's probably about 12 or 18 now. And I'd say that that's going in the right direction. And ultimately, this is about, understanding that sales is a lot about relationships, and it's a lot about the soft skills. Like if you can just learn the speeds and feeds of whatever it is you're selling, anybody can do that, right? But a lot of what customers now look for from salespeople is the soft stuff. That's what's really hard. And so, teaching those kinds of things like empathy or how to overcome objections, it's in anything, communication majors, right? Persuasion is a big topic in communication. And so are there other things that you really can hone in on when it comes to finding talent? So it could be that you go hire communication majors, right? Or even journalist majors, right? That are somebody who can write really well, like whatever it might be, looking outside of business as being the place to teach you how to sell. Like I don't have an undergrad in business, I don't have my MBA. And so, it was just something that I found I was really good at. And I didn't care at the time I was the only woman. I actually used it to my advantage. But I don't think that, I don't think I was ever overlooked because I was a woman. And I don't think I ever got a job because I was a woman. Now, might be completely naive on those two things. But I never felt that. It doesn't mean maybe behind the scenes that is in fact what was happening, but I never felt it. Yeah. And so but I always tried to, open the door and make sure that I had balance. And a lot of that was because I actually wanted the dynamic of the team to be better, not because I was trying to check a box.
How did you end up in sales?
It really was an accident, really, at the end of the day. Like I'm not a great student. I'm a visual listen learner, not a book read learner, which is why I never went on to get my MBA.
Yeah.
And I accidentally stumbled into selling, and I realized I was kind of good at it. And so ultimately, it was an accident. I remember when I went home and said, "Hey, Mom, I think I'm going to get into sales." She was like, "What? I've spent all this money on your education. What are you doing?" Like, oh my goodness. And now 35 years later, she's like, "I guess this worked out for you," that I was kind of pretty good at it. So thankfully, if Mom is happy, I think that's the big thing. Yeah. But I would say this, I'd say, whatever your passion might be, you may not like the quota bearing side of selling. And so there are many industries in sales where you can sell and not get paid a commission. You want to have that guaranteed base. There are others where it's completely commission-based, like real estate. That may not be for you. But if you like people and you like the flexibility of doing something different almost every day and having these amazing conversations with people, sales might just be for you. But not everybody likes commission. Like that's one thing, they might like to sell, but they don't like the commission side of it.
This naturally goes into the next part of our conversation here. I just want to, as we're getting close towards the end, I think it's advantageous we have this talk. The gap. I was interviewed in the past another guest, and she shared how studies show that women get 80 cents on the dollar compared to most men, and sales is one of those areas where it's just such a huge world of it's numbers. People love money, but are women motivated? And this is so general, so you might smack me here. But are women naturally push towards like the idea of money towards when it comes towards sales? And if so, why not? And then also, I know it's a loaded question there, but then the other part to that too is, how can we change that the gap, the payment gap that we see that happens?
Yeah, so I'll start on the backside of that question. So I'm just going to use us as an example. I work for Salesforce, and our CEO went and did a sort of shore up of, okay, list me all the men and all the women that have the same position, and then show me pay. Yeah. Like just very simple and very basic, right? Men, women, same role, pay. The first time we did it, we found that there was about a $4 million gap between those two. And literally, Mark Benioff, authorized shoring that right up immediately. In the second year, we expanded that a little bit. Okay, now let's say, is it, first language and race and where are they from? Once again, it was another 4 million, a little about 3.5 million. And so 3 or 4 years running, a lot of that was because we had acquisitions, new hires, and so you constantly have to keep up on top of that. So I'd say if you are a manager and you're listening to this, to actually line it up. Who are your people? What are their roles? What are their titles? What are their tenures? Everything. And how much are they getting paid from a base comp perspective? And if you have gaps, you better shore it up. Right? Especially if you have no other reason other than the fact that you have nothing. Well, they were hired 3 years ago. I don't care. If you hired a new person today and they're making 10,000, 5,000, 3,000, 1,000 more, and there's no other reason, shore it up. Yeah. And what happened was we kind of over pivoted where on the third or fourth year we did it, men were actually upside down. And so we had to kind of go back the other way, right? So this is not just a matter of white women to men, but it does take, the commitment to making sure that stays as aligned as it can. And once again, gender is an easy first place to start, and then you can get to other things. Even disabilities, right? You could say, look, we don't have anybody, on the team that has a disability, and not that it could be any kind. But I mean, I've seen Salesforce does a really great job. We've gotten also much better about designing products that are more open, to if, you can't, even something like dropping down in the drop down menu of a contact and having it be Mr. Miss. Well, what if somebody is gender neutral? Like there's no choice, or what if they go by another name, but that's not their legal name? Like, how do you capture that? And so there's all kinds of things that come out with this diversity conversation. But I'd say first and foremost on pay, look to see what you have and shore it up if you can. And then make a much better concerted effort when hiring to keep that as even as you can. And then every year, do a, touch base and make sure that things didn't get off kilter again. So I think that's a great first step.
Last question I have for you. I'm in college, and you're speaking to, well, let's say you're speaking to one of them, speaking to a female sales rep, potential seller. She's in college and she's thinking about going into finance or this idea of marketing or sales. You need to give her the message on why she should consider sales. What would you tell her? What would you say?
Yeah, I can only tell you my journey.
Yeah.
I think that that's sort of the best thing I can say is in my 30s when I got serious about, sort of working, and I was in sales, and I took my very first job working for a very small company selling software, and I kind of found my niche. And I just, every 18 months in my 30s, I changed jobs. Always sales, but I wanted to sell more stuff, or I wanted a little more responsibility or a little more territory. I wanted kind of more. And it's not like, my managers at the time were sort of saying, here's your career path. Here are the things we want you to get going on. And so I gave my employers a heads up. Hey, look, I want a little bit more. I don't know if it's more responsibility or more territory or whatever the case might be. And I gave them all sort of 60 or 90 days to come back and say, hey, we found something for you. We think this will be a great fit for you. And I would go back 60 to 90 days later, and this is what I heard. And once again, my story, we really, appreciate you. We enjoy you working here. We want to keep you. We don't want to lose you, but we don't have anything for you right now. So I had to make the decision, and I left. And so every time I left, I got a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more territory, and I moved up the ladder to, ultimately, running a division of a Fortune 500 company. Over the course of, 15 years, it was a little bit more, stretching myself, learning. Once again, not very many women in the industry at the time, once again, selling technology, but I kind of took ownership of what did I want to do. One, I loved what I found I could, do, and I enjoyed it. Two, I was kind of the keeper of how much money I could make based on how much I sold, just because of the compensation plan. So I got very much fixated on how much money can I make. And now, once again, this is sort of middle 20s to, the kind of the end of my 30s, which, for good or bad, it was very much about consumption, right? What could I do? Now I'm in a different part of my career. Now it's more about contribution, doing things like this, right? Sort of sharing the journey and trying to help people that are going to be coming up behind me. But I would say this, trust the process, understand what you're really good at, double down on your superpowers. The things you're not very good at, that's okay. You can make a decision to either try to, get better at it, or, focus on the things that you're really good at. But look, you have to write your own story, whatever works for you, everybody individually. The only thing I'd say on this is that we have definitely seen through the pandemic a big exodus of women out of the workforce. And so I'm concerned about that. We've made a lot of progress over 10 or 15 years, and we're kind of going a little bit backwards because, kids are home, they're not in school, and the moms tend to be the ones that stay home. And not that I agree or disagree with that, but let's make sure we're not going backwards on sort of all the progress that we've made, especially in the field of selling.
Tiffani, if folks listen to this episode, want to get in touch with you, they heard you and they feel inspired and want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to go about doing so?
So I'm pretty active on social media. So you can follow me at Tiffani_Bova on Twitter. I'm on Instagram and, LinkedIn. Follow me on LinkedIn. I'm on Clubhouse. I'm on Facebook, so pretty much everywhere. And then, read my book, Growth IQ. And I've got a podcast called What's Next with Tiffani Bova. So all are ways that you can keep in touch with me.
Do you mind giving us a quick synopsis about the book?
Oh, yeah. She's 2 years old now, a little more than 2. She's translated in 9 languages. So she's making her way around the world while I am not. But it was really, it was a book that was grounded in my experience, as sort of being a seller, a marketer, and running customer service for 15 years. And then as a consultant for 10 years, sort of guiding and shaping a lot of the go-to-market and selling strategies and sales transformations for some of the biggest companies in the world. And, now being here at Salesforce for 5 years. Over the course of that 25 years, I've seen a lot of best practices from high-performing companies and organizations. And so it was about, how do you really hone in on growth becoming a thinking game and outthinking your competition? So it's 30 stories, because if you're like me, a salesperson, very short attention span, very hard to sit down and read a book. So I wrote the book I would want to read. So there's 30 stories to try to share the sort of lessons learned. And it's been really well received. It became a Wall Street Journal bestseller, and just in January, actually, this year, 2021, it became another best-selling book. So, it is still surviving and thriving during this time. So, it's been a great experience.
Oh, well, awesome. Well, we'll make sure to get it out to our community and push it out as well. So thank you so much, Tiffani.
Thank you for having me.
We'll connect on Clubhouse.
All right. Thank you.
That was the one and only Tiffani Bova, and I want you to go ahead and connect with Tiffani. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, make sure to go down into our show notes. You can see some information to connect with Tiffani, connect with her on LinkedIn, check out her book, as well as check out some of the great things that she's also taking part in doing right now. Learn about Salesforce and some of the great things they have to offer, and as well as make sure you connect with her on LinkedIn. Did I mention that as well? Follow her on LinkedIn. She produces some great content and very active. As always, listen, I want you to succeed. I bring on folks like Tiffani because they're going to be able to deliver value every single time and give you insights that can help you. And especially on this topic, when it comes towards getting more women involved in sales, we need it. It's going to benefit all of us. It's going to help us all around. As always, take advantage of the sponsors that we have to offer, sponsors that we have, and some of the offers that they give. They're giving away some great things, man. I'm telling you, the software, the solutions that they have are fantastic. So take advantage of it, check them out, and tell them that Donald sent you. As always, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to find more of those ideal customers. I want you to know what to say when you reach out to them. I want you to close more deals. But most importantly, I want you to go out each and every single day and do big things. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video today. If you enjoyed the content, I ask you to go ahead and hit that like button, that thumbs up at the bottom right-hand corner. Also, to make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. This way, we'll keep you up to date with all the latest sales strategies, latest tools, and things that are going to help you to not only find more prospects, but to close more deals. Thanks so much.